إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا فمن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. My dearest brothers and sisters, many of us, in fact all of us, have experienced this feeling of anxiety at some part of our lives. For youngsters, anxiety is usually felt at the time of exams. For adults, sometimes over marriage problems between husband and wife. But for other people, anxiety is more than just something they feel now and again. It's a chronic condition for some people. In fact, this condition, if you like, is a problem affecting many thousands of people just in this country alone. It is said that approximately every 1 in 6 people in the cities in the UK picks up a prescription for antidepressants. 1 in 6 people. And a recent survey suggests that in 25 adults between the ages of 35 and 55 would say that they suffer from what is called chronic anxiety. Always feeling anxious, tense, uncomfortable. And it gets to the point for these people that they can't do normal things that everybody else can do. It affects them. It affects, for example, their work life. It affects their family life. It starts to, put a strain on the relationship, for example, between the husband and wife, or father and children, or friends and relatives. Now this problem of chronic anxiety, which affects so many people, somebody may think that this issue only happens to people that have weak iman. Only those people that are far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those are the people affected by things like anxiety and maybe depression. Is that really true to say that? If you're far away from Allah, then you will suffer from these things. But if you're close to Allah, then you will never feel anxious about things, worry about things, especially not for long periods of time. The amazing thing is, my brothers and sisters, in the Quran, we find Allah told us about the feelings of hum, worry, huzn, grief, and asaf, sorrow, of some of the most greatest people ever to live, prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isn't that true? Like the mother of Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about her, وَأَصْبَهَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا, that when it came to the time where she had to throw her young baby into the Nile, being inspired by Allah, أَصْبَحَ فُؤَاد, her heart, emotional heart, became free, meaning free of every thought except the thought of her child. How Allah described her heart to us, showing the worry and the anxiety that she felt over her son. What about the case of Yaqub alayhi salam? A prime example of someone who felt anxiety, and not just for a moment, but for a long part of his life. Let us ponder over his story, the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. You know better than I, when Yusuf alayhi salam is just a young child, Yaqub loved him more than anyone else. And yet what happened? His own children plotted to kidnap his son and then throw him at the bottom of a well. He never knew where his son was for many years. Some said 40 years. And that was painful for him. That is something that caused him a great deal of anxiety. And when that happened in the beginning, what did he say? فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ, a beautiful patience for me. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that's a patience bila shakwa, a patience when someone doesn't complain, Doesn't whine. Doesn't say to somebody, do you know what happened to me? Do you know what I'm going through? Terrible, my situation. Sabrun Jameel, he said. But then after 40 years, what happens? The same thing happens all over again. Now the second son, Binyamin, is taken to Egypt by the other brothers. And what happens? Binyamin is left there stranded in Egypt. They come back to their father and say, oh father, you wouldn't believe what happened. This time it's for real. Your other son, he's been taken in Egypt and he stole something. What does Yaqub alayhi salam say? The same thing again, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. A beautiful patience I'm going to have, but this time worse than the first time. And it brought him to breaking point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a beautiful insight into the way he felt in that moment. Allah said, وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ وَقَالَ يَا أَسَفَا عَلَى يُوسُفَ وَبَيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. Allahu Akbar. Allah said about Yaqub, a prophet of Allah, someone whose iman is stronger than anyone else you can imagine. What did he say about him? وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ. They just came to him, told him the bad news. He says, you know what, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm going to turn away from you. I want to be by myself. He doesn't say, let me go and find the counselor. Let me go and find the doctor. Let me go and find the shrink. No. He said, وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُ. I'm going to turn away from you. Just me and Allah. And what did he say to Allah? Ya asafa ala Yusuf. Oh my asaf over my long lost child Yusuf. It's been 40 years. I've been grieving over him. Now Allah, it's become too much for me. Asaf means sorrow. But it's more than just sorrow. As Zamakhshari said in his tafsir, it means to have a combination of feelings. A combination of jaza', worry, hasra, grief, and huzn. Hasra, regret, and huzn, grief. Grief, worry, regret. Over a long period of time. Feeling anxiety over a long period of time. That was Yaqub alayhi salam. Subhanallah. A prophet of Allah felt anxious for so long over this traumatic thing that happened to him. Yes, that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. وَبَيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ. And more than that, can you imagine this? Allah said his eyes turned white. This dark pupil area, for Yaqub, it turned white. His eyes either became blinded or partially sighted, min al-huzn, because of the intense grief that he felt. I mean, do you know anyone out there who suffered such anxiety that they've cried so much that their eyes have become blind? Do you know anyone like that? Of course not. But Yaqub alayhi salam, Allah said, that happened to him. Teaching us that he felt severe grief over this traumatic thing. Min al-huzn fahuwa kadhim. However, amazing point at the end, Allah said, fahuwa kadhim. He was someone who had kadhim. Kadhim means to hold back. Hold back on what exactly? Anger. That he felt angry with his sons for what they had done. Once upon a time they had done this, and again now again. And what happens when someone becomes full of anger? They lash out, don't they? They take it out on others. Maybe the husband takes it out on the wife, or the wife takes it out on the husband, or you take it out on your children. People lash out, can't control their anger. Allah said, Yaqub, amazing. He felt such grief, such intense anger, فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. But he held back on that. This one ayah, subhanallah, teaches us an amazing lesson. That is, anxiety and feeling anxiety is natural. It is normal. However, at the same time, what should be the way you treat it? How should you treat it? Well, you can go for the medicines. You can go and speak to somebody else. But there's something else many of us are not appreciating. And that is the way Yaqub dealt with it. He dealt with it by complaining to Allah, talking to Allah, pouring his heart out to Allah. Ya asafa ala Yusuf wa tawalla. He didn't want to hear anyone to hear what he had to say. He wanted to say to Allah privately. And you know that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved? It is true, but who do you want to share the problem with? Many of us want to share problems with others, but they're suffering from the same problems as us. It's like the sick person going to a sick person asking for help. Rather go to Allah, the one who can cure any ailment. Subhanallah, what Yaqub was teaching us. And then the others, they heard what he said. And they were amazed. Seeing their father become like this, they said, قَالُوا تَاللَّهِ تفتأ تذكر يوسف حتى تكون حربا أو تكون من الهالكين. They said Tallahi. You know, like you say Wallahi, Wallahi this, Wallahi that. When you say Tallahi, it's expressing shock, amazement. I can't believe this, Dad. Is this what is happening to you? Your eyes have gone white with grief. You're crying this much. تفتأ تذكر يوسف. You're going to keep on, remembering Yusuf and the pain of Yusuf. Don't do this to yourself, Dad. It's not worth it. If you do, حَتَّى تَكُونَ حَرَضًا, you're going to become harad. Harad is referring to like cattle. When they become so skinny, you can see them as bony creatures. As if they are saying that this grief is going to consume you until you wither away. أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْهَالِكِينَ, or the opposite is going to happen. Someone who's, he's filled up with grief. What happens to them? Well, they sometimes have a panic attack, right? Isn't that what happens to them? That they can't control it anymore, start to hyperventilate, have a panic attack, explode. Either you're going to wither away by keeping it inside of you for so long, or the opposite is going to happen, Dad. You're just going to explode. As if they're saying, don't do this to yourself. See how Allah wanted us to appreciate His feelings. Why? Because Allah knows that many of us feel like this at times. But, and this is the main point, how do we respond in those times? How do we behave in those times? What type of cure do we seek in those difficult times? For some of us, it's bad reactions. It's moaning, whining. It's cursing the qadr of Allah, wal-'iyadu billah. Why me? What did I do? What did I do to deserve this? People react like that, right? Why did I ever do anything wrong? What did I ever do to deserve this? Now this is the bad reaction. So what is the good reaction? Yaqub alayhi salam, subhanallah. He knows my son, Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was just this tall, Allah inspired him with a dream. إني رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. I've seen these 11 stars and planets, the sun and the moon, all bowing down to me, Dad. An amazing dream from Allah. You know what it means, don't you? I'm going to be someone when I grow up. I don't know what that is, Dad, but Allah wants something great for me. So I know my son isn't dead, but I don't know where he is. I don't know what's happened to him right now, and that's what is killing me. But you know what? Allah showed me that he's alive. I still have hope in you, Ya Allah. And then he says to all his sons, قَالَ يَا بَنِيَّ اذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف. Go, my sons, my dear children, go back to Egypt once again. They're thinking, Dad, what do you mean go back to Egypt? It's a lost cause. Yusuf, we threw him in the well 40 years ago. As for Binyamin, Aziz said he's going to keep him. What is this? You're telling us to go back? No, sons, never give hope. Give up hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِن يُوسُف. He doesn't just say, look out for Yusuf and his brother. فَتَحَسَّسَ means to really search out and to use your hawas, all of your senses, your intellect, your eyes, your ears. Look out for any signs of Yusuf. He's telling us that in tough times, seek out help. Find the means to help yourself. Don't say, I leave it to Allah. I know I have a problem, and I also know what may well help me. But you know what? Tawakkal ala Allah. La, this is not tawakkal ala Allah. Yaqub said, I know he's alive. And Allah, I hope in you that He will bring me back to him. But I need to do something about it, right? I need to. Go back, فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِن يُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِن رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. And then he says, and don't give up in the rawh of Allah, in the mercy of Allah, subhanallah. If anything, Yaqub should be the one being told, don't give up in the mercy of Allah, isn't it? He is the one who's in the desperate situation, but he's full of hope. Teaching us that in tough times, anxiety is difficult to deal with. But one of the things that helps is that you never, ever give up in the rahmah of Allah. Rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. Allah said, my mercy encompasses everything. Subhanallah. He wanted us to know that there is no limit to my mercy. And if you know that, and you are convinced of that, you can never have total despair of Allah. And then He tells His sons, listen, I'm being deadly serious about this. Why? إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِن رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. You know what? The only one who despairs in the mercy and the hope of Allah is what? A foolish person? Someone who has weak iman? No, a person who is a kafir, a person who is a disbeliever. Subhanallah. If you ever said to yourself, I am such a messed up person, I don't know if I can ever change. My habits are so bad. I've done such terrible things in my life. I'm a lost hope. There's no way I can ever change. And you really felt that Allah could not help you, then be careful. Be very careful. Because that, my brothers and sisters, is like saying the following. Allah, you are Arhamur Rahimeen, the most merciful of the merciful. But you know what, to me, you're not that merciful. Astaghfirullah. Allah, you have the power to change everything and anything. Ala kulli shay'in qadir. But my situation, my problem, you don't have the power to change things. Now, who would say such a thing? Only a disbeliever in Allah. And isn't that what we find today? That the atheists, their common argument is what? We don't believe in God. Because if there was a God, how comes there are so many injustices taking place in the world? How comes there are natural disasters? If there was a God, there wouldn't be this. Subhanallah. Exactly why Yaqub alayhi salam said, those that have given up in the hope of Allah are who? Kuffar. So what do we say to such people? We say, yes, it is true that there are many injustices and misfortunes happening. But have you ever asked the question, why? Why did Allah, God, want tests and tribulations to happen to people? Isn't it possible that through tests, people are impacted in a positive way? Isn't it possible that through tough times, people actually change for the better? Even from a worldly understanding. Don't we appreciate that? I mean, look what happens to someone when he becomes sick. A person with diabetes, he develops gangrene in his leg. Doctor says he needs to be cut off. Oh no, that's terrible. Yes, but you need to go through the pain of surgery in order to live without this disease. I appreciate that. I can understand that the doctor wants me to feel pain in order to bring about a greater benefit. But you know what, oh atheists, the problem isn't just that. The problem is that you don't believe in a life to come. And that is the main problem. For if you believed that there is a life after this, and that life is worth living and striving for, then you would appreciate that having tests in your life is simply a means to achieving success in the next life. Isn't that the truth? That through this test, subhanallah, Yaqub alayhi salam and Yusuf alayhi salam are reunited once again. And through this test and tribulation are the brothers who went from being evil haters of their own blood brother Yusuf, went to admiring, loving and being reconciled with him, wanting to prostrate to him out of honor and respect. How did that happen, Ya Allah? Ya, I put them through tests and tribulations. And they behaved positively through those tests. And so you see the fruits of that behavior. Isn't that what Allah told us in the Quran? الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. That I created death and life, meaning everything that you experience in your life. Why did I give it to you? Why? In order for you to achieve a state of peace and tranquility, well-being, good health? No! لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, to test you, to trial you. Why, Ya Allah? I want to see ayyukum, which one of you, my creatures, ahsanu amala, are best in conduct. Which one of you are going to respond positively to me in times of tests? So some lessons that we learn from Yaqub alayhi salam. One key lesson, my brothers and sisters, is that though many of us may experience anxiety and stress in our lives, that should never lead you to lose hope in Allah. Rather, the opposite should happen. Where you go through testing times and you perceive the test to be something that could impact you positively. It could bring you closer to Allah. It could have your sins forgiven. It could raise your rank in the akhirah. And so, the way you respond is with sabrun jameel, beautiful patience, and tawakkul in Allah, that I hope, Ya Allah, one day this problem of mine will go away. And that is my hope in you, Ya Allah. I don't hope in anyone else like I hope in you, Ya Allah. And I will never, ever despair in you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us words to say in order to help bring us out of this state of anxiety and worry. In fact, there are reported to be some 10 supplications in which the Prophet ﷺ told us that if a person was to say these things in a time of distress, anxiety, saying them from the heart, feeling the meaning, then for sure Allah would change his affair. For sure Allah would remove that anxiety from his heart. And one of them, one such supplication was mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ to be the supplication of who? The Prophet Yunus ﷺ. In this narration, the Prophet ﷺ said that there is no one who goes through karb, this time of test, difficulty, where he feels anxiety and stress, except that he says this to Allah and Allah responds to him. What was the dua of Yunus ﷺ? This dua, he said it when he was inside the belly of a whale, in the bottom of the ocean, in darkness after darkness. He's in the darkness of the cover of the night, in the darkness of the ocean, in the darkness of the belly of the whale. No one could imagine where he is. He's got no one to turn to, all alone, vulnerable. And he cries out to Allah, La ilaha illa anta subhanak إِنِّي كُنْتُ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Subhanallah. Short words, amazing meaning, and a powerful response. La ilaha illa ant. How does he begin? He doesn't say, Ya Allah, help me. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, Ya Allah, save me from this trial. He doesn't say that. He says, La ilaha illa ant. There is no one worthy of worship except you, Ya Allah. That is how he starts this dua, saying the kalima of tawheed. Why? Because he knows that what Allah loves the most is for us to worship him. He knows that what pleases Allah the most is to see me and you worship him with our hearts, and to say words to that effect. And the greatest words are the words of Tawheed. La ilaha illa ant. Subhanak. Glory be to you. He's not just saying glory to you, Allah. You're so perfect. He's saying, Ya Allah, what I did, turning away from my people, that isn't befitting for me to do. And I'm a prophet of you. I shouldn't have done that. You have nothing whatsoever to do with my shortcoming. Total recognition of your own fault. Not blaming it on anyone. Putting your hand up and saying, Ya Allah, I did wrong. I acknowledge that. It has nothing to do with you. Subhanallah. Subhanak. Inni, indeed me. My soul, what is it? It indeed has wronged its own self. I am of the zalimeen. I am of those that do wrong, subhanallah. How in this short statement he captured an emotion of total vulnerability before Allah. I am nothing, Ya Allah, and you are everything. And I need you, Ya Allah, and I don't need anyone else. Only you do I turn to, Ya Allah. I am your worshipper. I am your slave. Help me. I've done wrong. And that, subhanallah, was enough for Allah. Does he need us to tell him the details of our problems? He knows them better than ourselves. What does he want from us then? Turn to me in those times of need. Don't curse my qadr. Have patience, and I want you to come to me. Come to me vulnerable. Come to me in need. Come to me in desperation, and don't go to anyone else. I am your Allah. Turn to me and worship me alone. Subhanallah. You see, people out there, they don't appreciate the beauty of submitting oneself to the Lord of the worlds. That is the problem. May Allah make us true worshippers of Him. May Allah remove the anxiety and the stress that is in many of our lives. Ya Ameen Rabbil Alameen. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.